we're back, Joseph King with the Landscape King podcast, where our objective is to share what we've learned. Hopefully you'll learn something. Maybe you'll laugh a little bit at me for being ridiculous and cheesy, or maybe you just enjoy the content. Whatever reason, you're here, the Landscape King podcast. Today, it's just me. Bum, bum, bum. But we're going to talk about the importance of communication in the landscape. And we're going to talk about a few stories of experience where we did not communicate well with the client, and it did not work great for the client or for the Landscape King. Communication is always important, and what we like to say is that you need to identify what your objective is for your project. And different examples of an objective of the landscaping is maybe you're trying to sell your house. And maybe the objective is that you just want curb appeal and you just want it to look clean. You're going to pick certain plants. You may not pick other plants. You're going to pick certain materials that may not be as costly because all you're trying to do is just make it look a little bit better to where you have some curb appeal to where you can sell your house. Now, if you have an area that you're going to spend a lot of time in, maybe you just bought a house that you want to really, when you pull up, you want it to look amazing when you have a long day at work, then you're going to spend a lot more money. You're going to choose different products, different plant sizes, more plant quantities to be able to really give you the effect that you want. So identifying what your objective is going to make sure that you, when you're doing the landscaping yourself, or when you hire a landscape professional, executes what you really want. So you accomplish that objective. So story time. So going back about maybe 10, 15 years ago, back when I worked at Clegg's Nursery, a local nursery here in, actually the location is in Denham Springs off Highway 16. A gentleman came in and said that he had, and I was probably 17 at the time, and I had seen other guys where people would come in and they would ask, hey, do y'all have somebody that plants something? And other guys at the time would go and they would plant things for people. They would do little side jobs for people. And I got the big idea that I was ready to do something on my own. And so this guy came in and he said, yeah, I've got these sago palms at my house that I want to get rid of. Is there anybody here that could do that for me? And I said, me. And so I went and I got his information. We talked about it. At the time, I had a Isuzu Rodeo. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it is just not the nicest vehicle, an old school SUV. The back of it opened up. It had like a tailgate on it almost. But it was an SUV, and the back glass opened up too. So what I did, my brother also worked at Clegg's at the time. So we got off work, we went there, we had some shovels, we had a wheelbarrow, and the seats came down as well. So I was able to just put everything in the back of the old Isuzu. We get there, everything's going great. The client's like, yeah. Thank you for coming. Fantastic. These are the two sago palms. We worked probably for an hour, 2 hours. These things were pretty big. And at the time, we didn't have any equipment. This is the first thing I ever did by myself. I promised my brother that I was going to pay him, to take him to dinner as well. And so we started getting the sago palms out. We busted our butts. We got them. We finagled them into the Isuzu. We closed the tailgate. We put all our tools and everything up. We finished, we cleaned, and the client shook my hand, said thank you, and went inside. And he was a happy customer. But one thing did not take place. I didn't receive any money. And to the client, he was very satisfied with that. In his mind, he thought that all we were going to do is we were just plant enthusiasts that just wanted the sago palms, and that he was very much just helping us out. Maybe he thought that. Maybe he was taking advantage of us. Who knows? But the bottom line was, what I learned that day is I did not communicate with him that there was going to be money exchanged for our services and what that fee would need to be. And so from that point on, we never made that same mistake again. And so not only communicating with yourself or your spouse what your objective is, but if you're going to hire a landscape professional, for you and for the landscape professional, there needs to be clear communication expectation of what the cost of the project is going to be. And so, although that was many, many years ago, and I've never made that mistake again, there are some times when we communicate with a client and we think that the client is looking for one thing and they're really looking for something else, or they say that they want low maintenance, they don't want to spend a lot of money, and they're not super satisfied with the work. But when you identify a low budget, you have to know, and it's really to the landscape professional as well, that they communicate exactly what you're going to get for that, whether it's a rendering, whether it's just a simple explanation. In some capacity, both parties need to know what's going to happen. And so, flash forward, probably another example of that is just, we had another situation where we had a client where we did some work for, and they thought that a certain portion of the work, I don't remember the exact example, but there's been time and time where we've had situations where we didn't communicate as well as we should have again, and a client thought that something was included and it wasn't included. So the bottom line is, just whether you're a landscape professional or whether you're a homeowner hiring a professional, just make sure you have something in writing that covers you and covers that professional as well. With landscaping, it's always changing too. So we have some projects sometimes where we start doing something and we see, hey, we had talked about this, but what if we added this? And then we'll bring that to the client as a change order and say, hey, this wasn't included in the project, but this is a really good idea. What do you think about this? And being young in business, it's really important to also speak up and explain when something's included and when it's not. And then sometimes people are really happy, and even if it's more money, sometimes people are ecstatic to do something because it's a better idea and they're going to get a better result. Again, establishing what the objective that you're trying to accomplish is, to where you really have that satisfaction at the end of the project. Super important. So communication. Now, what we do at Landscape King now is we do have an office coordinator who's helping me communicate better. So she helps answering the phone. She also helps make sure that we have the materials ready for the projects to where we can do what we say we're going to do. Now, do we do this perfectly all the time? Of course not. Do we make mistakes? Of course. Are we trying to get better? Absolutely. Our goal is to deliver a great product every single time. And so in an effort to communicate, if we make a mistake, we own that mistake and we do what we say we're going to do, even if it costs us money sometimes. And I'm sure if I go down memory lane, we can find many situations where we ate part of a project just because we were trying to do the right thing. It's not always best for the business, but it is best for the business because we need to do what we say we're going to do no matter what. What we also do now is we do send reminders to people, and we do have some situations where our over-communication has actually hurt us, where we have these automations set up that when we have somebody on the schedule, it sends them a notification. And what we've learned this year is that this year being the busiest year we've ever had, we thought we had enough people to be able to handle the spring rush. We did not have enough people, and so we just had to keep pushing people back, and it's really hard to put somebody on a schedule and then for them to feel like it's just dragging for us to come out there. So what we've started doing, instead of giving people an exact date, we've just started giving them a week of when we're going to come. And then we do let people know the day before. But we had a situation a few weeks ago where we had told the client, hey, it was going to be this date. We had pushed her back a few times just because we had some weather delays. What we've learned And the point of me saying this is that even now we're still learning how to communicate better, and we've got to set the expectation that, hey, we're trying to give you a courtesy of a day that we can come, but we might have a weather delay, we might have a project delay, and it might push us back. As long as we communicate that with the client, most people are pretty reasonable with that. But what we did was we set this lady up on the schedule with the automations, which people love, of an automation of, hey, you have an appointment with Landscape King, we're coming this time, blah, blah, blah. And people love that as long as we actually show up. And so for this lady, we sent her this automation, and it was like noon, and we were nowhere to be found. And she called us very frustrated, rightfully so. And we just made a mistake. And we thought that we had her on the schedule, but somehow we missed it. And so what we've learned in that is that now as good as automations are, sometimes it can mess us up. The point is that we're going to do our very best to always communicate the very best way with our clients. So communicate. If you got questions about what we can do for you, just ask us. You can send us an email. You can send us a text. If you got questions about something you want to hear on this podcast, just let us know. We're going to have some really cool guests this season. Different subjects that we're going to talk about are going to be more about just plant issues that people have. We might have a fence guy on talking about the importance of utilizing different materials in a landscape as well. We're going to have some cool stuff. So keep following us. Hopefully you're learning something. If there's something specific you want to know more about, just ask us. So Joseph with Landscape King, let's plant some plants.